Hello and welcome everyone. My name is David Kearns. I'm the Country Manager for Australia and New Zealand at the Global CCS Institute. It's a pleasure to be with you today to introduce the launch of the Global Status of CCS 2025 report. Thank you to all for joining us today from around the world. The Global CCS Institute is an international CCS think tank dedicated to accelerating the deployment of carbon capture and storage worldwide. We have over 200 members spanning governments, global corporations, private companies, research bodies and NGOs, all united by a shared commitment to address climate change through high-impact CCS solutions. The Institute undertakes fact-based advocacy, produces catalytic thought leadership, including the status report being launched today, as well as authoritative knowledge sharing across the global CCS community. We have offices all around the world, including in Australia, Japan, China, Abu Dhabi, the UK, and the United States. Today's presenters will outline insights from the status report, CCS project and financial trends, and regional updates from APAC and India, China, Japan, Europe, and the Middle East and Africa. A recording of today's webinar will be made available shortly after the webinar has concluded. To kick off today's launch, I'm delighted to introduce a message from our CEO, Jared Daniels, who will share his perspective on this year's report and the future of CCS.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jared Daniels, CEO of the Global CCS Institute, and I'm delighted to have you joining us for the launch of the Global Status of CCS 2025 report. 2025 has been an eventful year for climate action. While decarbonization efforts continue, geopolitical and economic pressures have created short-term uncertainty. Ambition across governments and corporations remains high, but the reality of turning bold pledges into concrete progress is becoming clear. Of course, the science is unchanged. To limit global warming, we need CCS at gigaton scale. This is not aspirational, it is essential. And while challenges remain, the direction of travel is clear. CCS scaling up, supported by stronger policy, deeper private sector engagement, and the continued expansion of global infrastructure. This year's report is centered on staying the course, recognizing that progress is real, but it must be sustained and accelerated to achieve our shared climate goals. Around the world, projects are advancing from planning to operation, with commercial activity steadily increasing across multiple sectors. As of July this year, 77 commercial projects are operating, with a combined capture capacity of 64 million tons of CO2 a year. An additional 47 projects with a combined capture capacity of 44 million tons per annum are now under construction. Many of these projects are the first of their kind at commercial scale in sectors like cement and natural gas power generation. These breakthroughs mark a critical step in demonstrating that CCS can be deployed across diverse industries and play a central role in decarbonizing critical industrial sectors. Notably, this year we've seen that different regions are charting increasingly distinct paths to scale CCS that reflect local priorities, resources, and market conditions. Some areas are accelerating deployment through strong direct government support for projects and infrastructure, while others are laying the regulatory and policy foundations needed to attract investment and drive future growth. Taken together, these trends highlight regional differences in pace and approach, but all point toward the same outcome: CCS moving to delivery at global scale. Importantly, this year we've seen the financial sector step up its engagement, with non-recourse debt secured for initiatives like Net Zero Teesside and the Northern Endurance Partnership. Robust policy frameworks, offtake agreements, insurance products, and standardized project finance approaches are helping turn carbon management into an investable, scalable opportunity worldwide. While policy and finance are crucial, progress does not happen in isolation. International collaboration remains central to scaling CCS deployment. Multilateral efforts like the Clean Energy Ministerial and the Carbon Management Challenge are fostering international collaboration and expanding CCS's geographic reach. 34 countries now include CCS in their NDCs under the UNFCCC, with Switzerland and Uruguay among the latest additions. Vietnam and Slovakia are developing their first CCS projects, underscoring the technology's truly global trajectory. These international efforts reflect a shared understanding. All forms of carbon management, from point source CCS to carbon dioxide removal, are essential to reach net zero while continuing to supply the energy, cement, steel, and fertilizer the world needs. It is in part thanks to these collaborations that carbon management is steadily progressing toward required deployment levels amid the uncertainty of the past 12 months. Progress is undeniable, but staying the course is essential as the need for CCS has never been clearer. Governments, industry, and finance must work together to close policy gaps, build infrastructure, and scale investment to reach the gigaton levels required for net zero. Collaboration, clear frameworks, and persistence will determine success. Looking ahead, the Institute will continue working with global partners to share lessons, remove barriers, lower costs, and drive the growth of CCS worldwide. Thank you again for joining us. We look forward to working alongside many of you in advocating for CCS soon.
Thank you for that message from Jared Daniels, our CEO. Next, I'd like to hand to Ian Havercroft to discuss our global snapshot. Ian.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Ian Havercroft. I'm the General Manager for Global Research and Analysis here at the Institute, and I'm pleased to be joining you for the launch of this year's Global Status of CCS report. As Jared mentioned, 2025 has been a year of real progress for CCS, though it has also come with its fair share of uncertainties. That's why our theme this year, Staying the Course, is so important. It reflects two realities. Firstly, that measurable progress is being made, and second, that to reach the gigaton scale carbon management we require, consistency in policy, in investment, and in infrastructure development. So let's start by looking at the numbers in this year's Global Status Report. The CCS project pipeline has continued to grow strongly in 2025, marking another year of steady progress. Since the release of last year's report, a record number of projects have moved into operation and construction. To put that into numbers, 77 projects are now operating, 47 are in construction, and 610 are in advanced or early development. This steady growth is fueled by a combination of policy support, commercial interest, and broader recognition that CCS is essential for achieving decarbonisation goals. Capture capacity is also rising. Across all projects, whether in operation, construction, or development, we now see 513 million tonnes per year. That's a 23% increase from the last status report. And importantly, we're beginning to see a growing number of dedicated CO2 transport and storage projects. These projects signal a step change in the maturity of the CCS value chain, helping to create a backbone for scalable, interconnected deployment at the levels the world requires. Next slide, please. Over the past year, we've seen significant advances in CCS policy, legal, and regulatory frameworks around the world. There's a clear pattern. Where we see strong national policies, we're also starting to see a stronger pipeline of projects. That tells us that clear and timely frameworks are absolutely essential for enabling CCS at commercial scale. On the international front, transboundary agreements remain critical. We've seen growing cooperation between countries, including new ratifications of the London Protocol. These steps are particularly important in enabling cross-border CO2 transport and storage, something that will become significantly necessary as the industry scales in future years. Now, our regional experts will shortly take you through these developments in much more detail. But before that, I want to highlight a few of the key policy, legal, and regulatory developments that have taken place around the world over the past 12 months. Firstly, in the US, the picture is somewhat mixed. Federal support through the 45Q tax credits continues, despite some reversals in broader climate policy. At the state level, we're seeing new legislation to enable carbon management activities. In Brazil and Canada, extended incentive schemes and new legislative proposals are helping to build momentum in both nations. In Europe, at the EU level, the Commission is increasingly positioning CCS as a critical part of net zero commitments. Member states are moving ahead with integrating CCS into national policies, often with direct project support. And in the UK, we've seen successful investment outcomes for government-backed projects, sending a strong signal to the market. Here in the Asia-Pacific region, Japan has strengthened its CCS commitment, including a new legal and regulatory framework for domestic CO2 storage. In Southeast Asia, both Indonesia and Malaysia have implemented legislation to support both domestic and cross-border operations. And we're seeing growing regional collaboration. Australia, Japan, Malaysia, Singapore, and South Korea, and Indonesia are all parts of ongoing discussions around transboundary CCS operations. Across other regions, we're also seeing significant developments. In the Middle East and Africa, we've seen government-driven progress with major project-level developments and increasing policy attention. And in China, CCS is receiving strong sector-specific support, alongside signals that the carbon trading market may expand to include CCS as an incentive mechanism. So at a very high level, it's clear policy and regulatory frameworks are maturing across regions, and in turn, this is directly influencing project deployment. Next slide, please. As CCS projects mature, we're now seeing the financial sector step up with new investment structures, private capital, and carbon markets helping to turn potential into real deployment. For the first time, we've seen CCS projects secure non-recourse debt, and examples include the Net Zero Teesside and the Northern Endurance Partnership projects. This signals in growing confidence from the financial sector that CCS can in fact deliver long-term value. Several factors are helping build this market confidence, as Jared indicated previously: robust policy frameworks, secure offtake agreements, standardized contracts, emerging insurance solutions, and structured project finance models. Private capital is also equally entering the space. In May 2025, NE partnered with the Global Infrastructure Partners to co-own CCS assets across Europe, a clear sign that institutional investors are taking CCS seriously. We've also seen several projects reach final investment decision or financial close, with examples including Northern Lights Phase 2 in Norway, the Liverpool Bay CCS project in the UK, and Stockholm Exergi BECCS in Sweden. Carbon markets are also playing an increasingly important role in supporting CCS. The EU-UK ETS linkage agreement strengthens the existing regional cooperation and provides more predictable pricing signals. Norway and Switzerland have established one of the first international carbon removal frameworks under Article 6.2, opening the door for cross-border carbon removals transactions. We're also seeing voluntary carbon markets expanding too. And for example, Microsoft has increased its BECCS offtake from Stockholm Exergi to over 5 million tons. And the European Commission is exploring the creation of an EU-level carbon dioxide removal purchasing program. All of this points to a financial ecosystem that is starting to support CCS at scale, which is essential as we move towards gigaton level deployment. Next slide, please. Looking ahead to 2030, we expect to see CCS capacity growing significantly and extend well beyond the traditional sectors that we've observed to date. Low carbon hydrogen and ammonia are projected to become the largest deployment sector, with more than 100 million tons per year of new capture capacity. Strong growth is also expected in power generation and heat, alongside continued expansion in natural gas processing. Regionally, North America is likely to remain the global leader. However, Europe is set for a major surge, growing by under 3 million tons per annum today to over 90 million tons per annum by 2030, making it the second largest region. Importantly, these projections include only projects currently in construction or development. This underscores just how strong and robust the confirmed CCS pipeline is as we move towards 2030. Thank you, and I'll hand back to David.
Thank you, Ian. Next, I'd like to hand to Bernadine Smith, who will give an overview of the Asia-Pacific region. Over to you, Bernadine.
Thank you very much, David. I'm Bernadine Smith, the Principal for Policy, Legal, Regulation and Commercial at the Institute, and I will be covering the Asia-Pacific region and China. Japan will be covered separately. Rising energy demand in APAC is driving innovation, collaboration and project development across the region. 2 more CCS facilities have entered the construction phase this year, and 1 additional facility has entered operations. To allow for cross-border transport and storage of CO2, governments have commenced engagement on bilateral arrangements, although none has been signed under the London Protocol to date. Governments and industries from countries with limited storage capacity, such as Japan, South Korea, and Singapore, are increasingly collaborating with neighboring countries on feasibility studies for cross-border CCS value chains. However, challenges to the large-scale deployment of CCS beyond low-cost applications in the oil and gas sector still remain, the main issue being insufficient policy incentives to support a positive business case for CCS. Stakeholder engagement and education on the stringent regulatory requirements around CCS are also urgently needed in the region to support large-scale deployment. But despite these challenges, new projects and studies continue to be announced as governments and companies around this region improve their understanding of the economic and environmental opportunities of CCS. Next slide, please. The past year has seen significant positive regulatory developments, including the ratification of the London Protocol by Australia to allow for cross-border transport of CO2 for offshore geologic storage. Secondly, the passing of the Carbon Capture, Utilisation and Storage Act by the Malaysian government, the inclusion of CCU within the scope of India's carbon credit trading scheme, and the release of further CCS regulations in Indonesia. On the project front, Australia now boasts 2 operating CCS facilities, Gorgon and Moomba, and currently these 2 projects collectively store 3.3 million tonnes of CO2 per annum. New Zealand hosts the 3rd operating facility in the region. Petronas, BP, and PTTEP all have CCS facilities in construction now. These are Kasawari in Malaysia, Tangguh in Indonesia, and Arthur in Thailand, respectively. And there are now 54 facilities in earlier stages of development, excluding the domestic facilities in Japan and China, with 6 of these CCS facilities reaching a positive financial investment decision in Australia and Southeast Asia in the last year. Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Australia continue to position themselves as storage hubs, with regulatory frameworks, licensing regimes, and commercial models either in place or beginning to take shape. The transport of CO2 by ship from capture hubs to storage facilities is critical to the optimum deployment of CCS in the Asia-Pacific region. Larger ships, better suited to the long shipping distances, with capacities of up to 80,000 cubic meters, are being designed by various shipbuilders for the Asia-Pacific market specifically. And Mitsui OSK Lines and Mitsubishi Shipbuilding are in the process of developing the world's first liquefied CO2 and methanol combination carrier, significantly increasing CO2 transport efficiency. Next slide, please. China continued to strengthen its climate change efforts in 2025 with notable progress on CCS development across policy, project deployment, and technology innovation. On the policy front, China announced the expansion of its national carbon trading market to cover the steel, cement, and aluminium industries. The central government is also actively exploring dedicated support measures for CCS. For example, under the Advanced Green and Low Carbon Technology Demonstration Project Implementation Program, 7 CCS projects received funding in April 2025. At the project level, China has advanced CCS deployment in coal power, chemicals, cement, and pipeline infrastructure. The most significant milestone is Huaneng's 1.5 million tonnes per annum CCS project. It is integrated with a coal-fired power plant, and this is the largest facility of its kind in the world. Coupled with 6 gigawatts of renewable energy, this project creates a hybrid energy system that combines fossil fuel reliability with clean energy and carbon management. In the cement sector, Beijing BBMG Group launched a 100 kilotons per annum CCS demonstration project, marking the 3rd operational facility of its kind in China. In transport, CNPC began construction on a 2-phase 400-kilometer CO2 pipeline in April 2025, designed to carry 4 million tons of CO2 per annum. China is also contributing to the global CCS supply chain. In late 2024, Dalian Shipbuilding Industry Company delivered the first 2 liquid CO2 transport ships to Norway's Northern Lights project, with 2 more deliveries forthcoming. And in February 2025, COSCO Shipping Heavy Industries unveiled the Agogo FPSO in Shanghai, the world's first floating production, storage, and offloading vessel equipped with offshore post-combustion CCS technology. This vessel is destined for deployment by Azule Energy off the coast of Angola. And that concludes this section of the report. I will hand back to David. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bernadine. I'd like to now hand to Hiroshi Nambo to discuss the updates from Japan. Hiroshi.
Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. My name is Hiroshi Nambo, Japan representative of the Global CCS Institute. Japan is taking clear and steady steps to move CCS forward. According to Japan's 7th Strategic Energy Plan and the National CCS Roadmap, CCS is indispensable for achieving energy security, economic growth, and carbon neutrality at the same time. Japan aims to mitigate 240 million tons of CO2 per year by CCS in 2050. In May 2024, last year, the government enacted the CCS Business Act, a comprehensive legal foundation for exploration, storage, and pipeline operation. Backed by a solid policy and regulatory frameworks, CCS in Japan is now moving from demonstration to full-scale commercial operation. As a first major step in 2024 last year, JOGMEC launched 9 advanced CCS projects, fast mover commercial projects, 5 in Japan and 4 overseas. Because of limited domestic storage potential, cross-border CCS is very important for Japan. Negotiations are now underway with Malaysia, Australia, and other countries to establish frameworks for CO2 transport and storage. In order to begin commercial operation around 2030, each project needs to reach a final investment decision by 2026. And Japan is developing incentives to support commercial CCS projects, such as a climate transition bond and a new funding scheme to subsidize for both CAPEX and OPEX. From 2026, Japan plans to start a new system called the GX ETS, a national cap and trade and emission trade scheme. Regarding technology development, Japan is advancing the development of liquefied CO2 shipping technology. Demonstration projects are supported by the government, and 7 major shipbuilders and shipping companies are working together to develop standard design for liquefied CO2 carriers. Japan is also accelerating CO2 capture R&D through the Green Innovation Fund. 7 major projects are ongoing to develop low-cost capture technologies using solid solvent, metal organic framework or MOF, membranes, cryogenic, and electrochemical separation. The good news just we received yesterday, Nobel Prize in Chemistry has been awarded to Professor Kitagawa from Kyoto University for his pioneering research on metal organic framework, which can be applied to CO2 separation. In fact, this field is also strongly supported by the Japanese government R&D programs. Okay, in summary, Japan's CCS journey is accelerating with strong momentum. A solid legal framework has been established. 9 business model projects are now progressing. International collaboration is advancing to build robust regional CCS networks. And technology innovation is being accelerated with strong government support. Japan will do its best, but CCS can succeed only through global collaboration. That's all from me. Thank you very much for your attention. David?
Thank you, Hiroshi. Next, we have a recorded message from Tracy Radosta to talk about the Americas.
Hello, my name is Tracy Radosta, and I am the head of the Americas for the Global CCS Institute. The Americas continue to lead the global deployment of CCS with over 223 million metric tons of CO2 already securely stored and more than 30 operational projects. This number will only continue to grow throughout the Americas as we see new projects emerging. The Blue Point Project in Louisiana, the BKV South Project in Texas, the Pathways Alliance Project, and Petrobras Sao Tome Cabiajunas pilot project. Policy is dynamic across the Americas. The US and Canada continue momentum through supportive tax incentives and streamlined permitting, while Brazil is emerging as a regional leader in Latin America, advancing CCS policy and hosting COP30 in Berlin. The convergence of AI power demand, CCS infrastructure, and regulatory readiness could unlock significant economic opportunities in the Americas. Geologic storage with enhanced recovery is underway in Brazil, Canada, and the US, offering multiple benefits and revenue streams. In the US, parity of the 45Q tax credits strengthens the business case for CCS, while robust monitoring, reporting, and verification standards ensure transparency and accountability for permanent CO2 storage. Financial incentives, emerging revenue models, and global trade are accelerating near-term CCS deployment in the Americas as companies begin to prepare for trade-linked carbon accountability for their exports. So as you can see across the region, CCS is proving its dual value, driving economic growth and global competitiveness while advancing climate goals. This sets the stage for the many compelling case studies, including the data center example I'll share next. AI data centers are a driving force in electric demand growth across the Americas. At least 9 natural gas power plants have been announced in the US and Canada since mid-2025. By incorporating CCS, companies will be able to meet aggressive emission reduction targets while ensuring reliable power for data centers. It is estimated that 55 gigawatts of new capacity will be needed in the US by 2030, and about a third of that will need on-site power. Natural gas combined cycle with CCS is emerging as a strong option. It's cost competitive, dispatchable, and deployable at speed. It provides the reliability that the data centers need to meet the fluctuating energy demands of AI training modules while meeting emission targets. So as you can see on the graphic on this slide, the US Energy Information Administration published a study that showed how natural gas combined cycle with CCS is the second lowest cost option. Although geothermal was the lowest, it is limited by geography, which brings us to location. Location is key. States with abundant, low-cost natural gas, supportive regulatory environments, and storage resources are best positioned to host natural gas combined cycle with CCS-powered data centers, offering a strategic trifecta of energy reliability, economic development, and emissions reduction. For example, a recent announcement of a Wyoming AI data center project powered by natural gas with CCS provides a model for powering massive new digital infrastructure without overloading the grids. So to conclude, as you can see, the convergence of AI data centers, energy reliability, and carbon management presents a transformative opportunity. It offers scalable path to power the digital infrastructure while advancing climate goals. Strategic deployment in key regions can unlock investment, innovation, and leadership across the Americas.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Up next, Richard Lees will be discussing Europe and the UK. Over to you, Richard.
Thank you, David, and hi everyone. I'm Richard Lees, the Institute's head of Europe, and I'll walk us through Europe's most significant developments. It's been a good year of progress in the region in many ways, but not without its challenges. But let's start with policy, where Europe continues to lead the way in carbon management and CCS. At the EU level, the Net Zero Industry Act recognises CCS as a pivotal and strategic to net zero. Importantly, it sets out annual injection capacity targets of at least 50 million tonnes per year of CO2 by 2030, with an early assessment for a 2040 target, obligating 44 oil and gas licensed entities in 11 member states. The Clean Industrial Deal is a major step aligning climate action with industrial competitiveness. This is important for our energy-intensive industries. The deal proposes an Industrial Decarbonisation Accelerator Act to address permitting bottlenecks, introduce carbon intensity labelling, and foster local procurement. It signals an industrial decarbonisation bank to finance the transition, and more on that act in the coming months. We've also seen the adoption of the EU Carbon Removal Certification Regulation, which will certify technologies like BECCS and DACs. But policy at the national level is moving too. Denmark progressed its 1.1 billion CCS fund. Germany is embedding CCS into climate protection agreements. The Netherlands has published a CO2 removal roadmap and signed an MOU with the UK. France has ratified the London Protocol Amendment and signed a storage deal with Norway. The UK is introducing a CCS network code and updating CO2 storage licensing guidance. So together, the EU and other European policies are creating the scaffolding for a healthy European CCS industry that is increasingly coordinated and connected. Policy is powerful, but collaboration builds cross-border momentum. The EU and UK have reached an ETS linkage agreement enabling cross-border CO2 transport and storage. We've also seen the first Mediterranean CCUS cooperation agreement between Greece and Egypt, and a Norway-Switzerland Article 6.2 agreement under the Paris framework to facilitate the trade of carbon removals internationally. France and Germany have progressed on the London Protocol ratification, which is also essential for that cross-border CO2 transport. And on the next slide, we can see that despite the policy progress, it's not all smooth sailing. Political volatility risk isn't unique to CCS, and public acceptance remains a hurdle, as we saw in France with the Picasso project. So we need to do more to inform, communicate, and educate. We still face access restrictions too for offshore storage outside of the European Economic Area, and cross-chain risk remains an area for attention. So even with that incomplete policy landscape, where there's policy, there are projects. Since mid-2024, 5 CCS projects have become operational and 7 more have reached FID or financial close. One standout is the Brevik CCS project in Norway. The Heidelberg Materials Brevik CCS plant came online in June, and in doing so, sets a new standard for zero carbon cement production. 2 of the UK's flagship CCS projects in Net Zero Teesside and Northern Endurance Partnership reached financial close following a combined £8 billion in debt financing. Other UK projects clusters are progressing well too. Exciting innovation is also happening in Denmark's Green Sand project, which has started construction on a CO2 transit terminal to accompany Europe's first offshore carrier. Private investment is also growing. Eni has partnered with global infrastructure partners, and Microsoft has expanded its BECCS offtake. At the European level, the Innovation Fund is now accompanied by the Clean Industrial State Aid Framework, which offers more flexibility to European member states. So in summary, Europe's CCS policy, financing, and therefore operational project landscape continues to evolve in the right direction. Policy frameworks are becoming increasingly integrated, cross-border cooperation is expanding, and real projects are being delivered. That's just some of the exciting news happening in Europe. Now back to you, David.
Thank you very much, Richard. I'd like to now pass on to Dr. Mohammed Abu Zahra to talk about the Middle East and Africa. Mohammed.
Thank you, David, and hello, everyone. This is Mohammed Abu Zahra, Chief Regional Officer, Middle East and Africa with the Global CCS Institute. It's a pleasure to talk about the CCS progress in the Middle East and Africa today, where we have seen a great momentum and more visible on the map. Over the last years, there are 4 projects in early stage of development, 6 projects in advanced stage, 5 projects under construction across the region, and we have already 3 operational projects in Qatar, UAE, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. This shows that the region has started moving from the planning phase into actual and real implementation phase of CCS. The focus in the region has been mostly on CCS hubs and value chain, linking emitters, pipelines, and storage sites to enable low carbon exports of low carbon hydrogen, ammonia, methanol, and other products. Example of these integrated projects are the Oman Blue Horizons and the expansion of LNG CCS project by Qatar Energy. There are major drivers pushing this development of CCS in the region, mainly the national net zero targets, industrial commitments, and new carbon regulations, which are pushing policy and CCS innovation in the region. Countries started implementing and embedding CCS in their national strategies and law. And an example of that, the UAE Federal Decree Law number 11 of 2024, which made CCS a regulated mitigation pathway. Also, we've seen the establishment of the Oman Net Zero Center, which coordinate cross sectors for CCS and low carbon solution implementation. Partnership has been a major milestone in the region over the last year, and we have seen lots of agreements across the Middle East with other regions in the US, Europe, Asia. An example of that, ADNOC, ExxonMobil, Texas CCS project, the Oman Ghazouani CO2 corridor MOU, and all of this signal the rising of global integration and collaboration. Saudi Arabia is still leading with the first regional CCS hub being under development. DAC and modular carbon capture has also been piloted and tested in different countries like UAE and Kenya. All of this progress still facing some major challenges when we talk about regulatory gaps, high cost, limited finance, and the weak or underdeveloped carbon markets, which needs to grow faster to support the investment and the continued support for CCS. Next slide, please. So when we talk about operational projects and other development, as I mentioned, we have 3 operational projects in Qatar, UAE, and Saudi Arabia. There are multiple projects under development, and would like to highlight the major integrated CCS hubs under development in the region, where we have Al Jubail hub under the leadership of Saudi Aramco in partnership with SLB and Linde, but which targets 9 million tons of carbon dioxide per year by 2028. Also in Saudi Arabia under development is the Yanbu hub, which targeting 2 million tons of carbon dioxide capture per year. In addition to these major hubs in the region, there are multiple projects under construction in the UAE and Qatar, but also other countries like Oman, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa. They have been advancing in piloting and testing and early stage deployment of CCS. Direct air capture, cyclone carbon capture, modular testing, mineralization, for example, the 44.01 pilots in Oman and UAE together with ADNOC are an example of early stage development of technologies and testing in the region. Partnership on developing these technologies has been essential in pushing advancement of CCS in the region, like the work ongoing on direct air capture by Saudi Aramco and Siemens Energy, and many other examples like direct air capture project in Kenya. International collaborations and MOUs has been signed for cross-border collaboration. Example of that, the Saudi-Greece CO2 export talks, Egypt-Cyprus MOUs, and many others. Collaboration and technology are accelerating the deployment of CCS and signaling the need for cross-border transport and storage, import and export in the region. Modular CCS deployment, direct air captures are some of the important evolving pathways for carbon removal and CCS in the Middle East and Africa. In summary, the Middle East and Africa are scaling very fast, major hubs being under development, policy framework evolving, and new technologies are being tested. The region is now moving from ambition to delivery, providing large-scale CCS deployment is both possible and already underway. To keep this momentum, countries must move fast on enabling policies, financing mechanisms, developing business models, and workforce skill to deliver full-scale CCS deployment and position the Middle East and Africa as a global leader in industrial decarbonization. Thank you very much, and back to you, David.
Thank you very much, Mohammed, and thanks everyone for your time and interest in today's Global Status of CCS report launch. On screen is a link to the report, which is now live on the Institute website. A recording of this webinar will also be made available soon in the resources section of our website. If your organisation is interested in becoming a member or collaborating with the Institute on the Global CCS conversation, please reach out to us at info@globalccsinstitute.com. Thank you and goodbye.